Hey friends, welcome back to the Destination Baby and Kids YouTube channel. This is Gina. I am super excited to be here with you today to go over some differences between two very cool products. So what are we looking at? What are we comparing? On my left, you will see the Graco Forever DLX Extend2Fit Snuglock car seat with ARB bar. On my right and on your left is going to be the Britax One4Life car seat with the option of anti-rebound bar in the quilted diamond gray. So this is a head-to-head on two all-in-one car seats from two absolute behemoths in the car seat space, Graco Baby and Britax. So what are the similarities? What are the differences? What am I getting for my money? Let's go right into it. So both of these seats are around the same price. They're both going to be about $420. The Graco does come with cup holders. I have not put them on. The Britax, obviously, as you can see, has the two cup holders already sort of on the frame. They are removable for washing, which is really cool, but I'm gonna leave them in there because removing them doesn't make the frame of the seat any narrower. On the Graco car seat, one cool thing is if we never put the cup holders on, or if we want to remove them, the seat goes from being 19 inches to 18 inches. So both of these seats, when they're apples to apples with the cup holders on them, are both 19 inches, but the Graco can be 18 inches if you want, for a little bit narrower. Now, the seat all around is just a little bit shorter and smaller than our Britax One4Life. So people frequently say, I'm really worried I'm gonna have the biggest baby and there won't be anything that fits my baby. The Britax car seats are definitely the best for big, tall children, heavy weights, and big bodies. So I cannot stress that enough. If you have a kid with a long, big, wide body, a Britax car seat by and large is generally gonna be a better choice than a lot of other brands just in terms of overall size. That being said, they're quite large. So a 19-inch wide car seat isn't necessarily super wide, but it is wider than, you know, a 17-inch seat, which is sort of the standard for 3 across. So keep in mind, either of these seats are going to be good, but they wouldn't be great choices to try and jam in a 3 across situation, okay? That being said, they're both cool because they do extended rear facing. What does that mean? That means that they'll sit backward up to 50 pounds. So you can start with a baby as little as 5 pounds in either of these seats, and then they'll stay backward facing till they're 50. Forward facing, you have a harness limit of 65 pounds, and then the Britax will hold 120 pounds as a high back booster. Additionally, 63 inches tall standing height for a high back booster. That is awesome. Our high back booster scenario on the Graco is going to be, where was it? I saw it earlier. Here we are. High back booster is going to be up to 120 pounds and 57 standing inches. So again, holds the same weight, but the height is going to be shorter. Now, both of these car seats come with infant padding. I'm going to remove that just because, like, who cares? They only use that for the first 20 pounds. And it's nice that they're both included to help position the body, but we get a much clearer sense of the seats when we remove the 800 pounds of padding that they all come with. And as you can see here, that is that seated torso height I was talking about. That is going to be that 18 inches, and here on the Britax seat we're at that 19 inches of seated torso height, so a little bit more torso height. Additionally, I don't know if I mentioned this before, but the padding on the Britax, there's no question it's way nicer. I mean, if it's not visible from the camera, the textile, like the texture and the actual textiles themselves on the Britax seat, there's no comparison. And again, the Britax seat is made in the US, whereas the Graco seat's made in China. So I'm not knocking stuff that's made in China, but I'm just saying I do think that we have a superior level of quality control on a lot of the stuff that is produced in the United States, and that is a point of pride. So I like to point that out on any seat that is made in the US. And this one is. Another thing is that this seat has about 13 inches of depth, whereas your Graco seat's going to have 12 inches of depth. Graco across is 12 inches. The interior here is about 12 and a half. So a little bit wider, a little bit deeper, and again, a taller seated torso height. I did not measure before, but now that I'm looking at it, if I can find my measuring tape, I'm curious where the crotch buckle should just say the buckle. The lower buckle is 5 inches or 7 inches on our Graco seat. And on the Britax seat, we have 3 buckle positions, believe it or not. So your most interior is 3, then we have 5, and then we have 7. So it's about the same in terms of how much space you get, but you do get an additional inch before the leg breaks over on the Britax. So that's very cool. Now, it doesn't mean Britax wins just by default though. Both of these seats are $420, but the Graco is gonna come with more features in that $420. So when I say that, I'm gonna give them marks, a higher mark than Britax because they include the anti-rebound bar for that $420. And if you're curious what that is a piece that will hook onto the seat when it's in a backward facing mode. And again, when we're talking about extended rear facing, keeping these kids backward for as long as possible, we want to arm them with the best for safety. And so an anti-rebound bar is always going to be their best choice for rear facing mode to be the safest. So we definitely prefer seats that have that. The Britax seat will have that, but you have to buy it separately. Now again, not the end of the world, but it is a hidden cost. It's an additional $65. Both of these brands make their anti-rebound bars out of metal, which is good. It's not just like some flimsy plastic thing. I will give probably the edge to Graco in terms of ease for putting the anti-rebound bar on. On Britax, if you don't clear the fabric around the hole when you're putting the bar in, it won't click in. That one I got to click in, so that's exciting. Normally it's more work for me. Yeah, so both of these options have the anti-rebound feature, which is great. But again, on your Graco, it's included in that $420. Here with Britax, we would be purchasing that separately. Now, the other thing about it is that, again, they both will hold huge, tall, big kids. You see we're going like to the edge of the frame here. The Graco also has a plate to give you more extended leg room. So you can get an additional 5 inches of leg room on this seat when it's in backward mode. Now, I'm gonna challenge the Graco engineers about this. I feel like this is a feature that's better on paper than it is in reality. I did hit on this when I did the review of this video, but I think that it's important to understand. Also, one thing Graco has are these little buckle tucks, which is really nice. Britax doesn't include that on this model, which is a shame. They should. They have it on cheaper seats that they make, so I'm not really sure why they don't do it on their more expensive seat. But yeah, no buckle tuck on this guy, although you can tuck the buckles into the plastic and kind of make your own. But it would just be nice if they included it. Okay, getting back to the extended legroom. The extended legroom here is really cool, but the problem is you have with car seat installation what's called an 80-20 rule, which means 80% of the car seat has to be sitting on the seat bench and only 20% can hang over the edge. So if you have a seat with extended legroom and you keep having to shove it further and further back in order to accommodate this extended legroom, at some point you get more than 20% off the seat and the seat starts to actually fall backward and it's not like correctly installed. So keep in mind, even though they make this claim about additional legroom, you would need to make sure that your car's seat bench would be deep enough for this to be a meaningful distance. And so just to sort of understand what I'm talking about, when it's at its shortest, both of these guys, and this one's long too, I mean, even without the extension, you're at about 23, let's just to be safe, we'll say 22 inches from the backrest to the footrest here. It's the same story, it's like 21 and a half, but if we extend it out, now we're at almost, like 26 and a half inches, which makes sense because it's a 5-inch additional piece, and it does stop at like different levels. It's not all or nothing. But my point being is that if you're going to engage this, you need to make sure it'll fit. And the other part to keep in mind is that whomever is sitting in front of this kid is going to have to scoot their seat forward to accommodate the seat keeping moving backward. So it's a cool feature, again, on paper. I don't know how much of a reality it would be to use it, but in theory, very cool thing that they have offered on their seats with the extended legroom. I still think on either one of these seats at 50 pounds in the shortest mode, you should be completely fine with legroom, but I'm also like not gonna let my kid dictate to me about comfort. I'm sorry, it's just ridiculous. Yeah, so that's a personal thing. If you're gonna fixate on how comfortable your kid is, you're gonna be unhappy for quite a while. You know, they'll probably be unhappy a lot growing up, and you're just gonna have to sort of manage that. So the sooner you get used to it, generally the better. All right, so we're removing the anti-rebound bar from the Britax, closing the click tight. And then on the Graco, the removal is pressing the buttons on both sides. This is sort of a spring mounted situation, so just be careful with that. If you hit both, it can pop out pretty quickly. That happened to me when I was reviewing it. I'm glad I didn't hurt myself. So again, we'll put the Graco back into forward facing mode, and we'll do the same with Britax so I can illustrate one more thing that's gonna be different between these seats. On the Britax seat, there's no question that the mechanism for installation here is superior. I don't care what anybody says. The American-made click-type mechanism on the One4Life and on the Grow With You are my favorite mechanism for clamping down on a seatbelt. So because these seats are so heavy, they both have steel frames. They're gonna be on the higher end of the weight spectrum just as far as the seat goes. So your lower anchor connectors, neither one of these seats are gonna encourage you to use the latch when you hook it up. Both of these seats will tell you to use the seatbelt. And all I'm trying to get across is that if you're gonna install a seat with the seatbelt, this Britax One4Life or the Grow With You has the best mechanism to do that, meaning you shove your seatbelt through a very clear belt path that's very clearly marked and defined. You'll lay it across. You simply collect any additional slack. You don't have to go hog wild. You just grab the slack and then you'll close this till you hear it click, and it's a very distinctive click sound. So that's all you have to do. You don't have to take your seatbelt and ratchet it all the way out and let it go back in. You're just set, ready to go in rear or forward facing mode. It's the same mechanism every time. It's always this monster mouth that opens up. On the Graco, it's the same concept. They have leverage arms that close on the seatbelt, but there's two different ones. There's one for rear facing mode, and they call this the, forward facing mode. They call this Snuglock technology on both rear and forward facing. But your forward facing mode arm is a separate arm as opposed to your rear facing arm. Now, the big benefit here is that they include it for both forward and rear facing. Obviously Britax, because it's one mechanism, you'll just thread your seatbelt through a different path. Both of these have lock-offs in forward and rear facing mode that are excellent, and they will work very clearly. Both of them are true lock-offs where you do not need to pull your seatbelt out and let them collect back in. So that's nice on both, but I still would give the advantage to Britax of just being a little easier, a little lazier. Now, that doesn't mean Britax is going to win the whole thing, but it is just useful to understand these differences. Again, bigger, taller kid for your high back booster in this seat. On this guy, it'll be a shorter child, but where this one has some benefit that this guy doesn't, is that when we change to high back booster mode, there's a compartment that's clearly marked to hide our harness, which means all of this stuff on the front here is going to tuck into there, and it's really easy to do. So you just kind of shove all your stuff back together. You make sure it's nice and loose, and then you shove it in this gray panel. You might not even need to like have your stuff buckled together. I'm just probably more like rigid about that kind of stuff, having dealt with these seats all day, every day. And if you tip it back, it makes it way easier to do. Now it's all stuck in there and the kid's not going to sit on it. We also have the option of putting the fabric behind. So there is a storage compartment specifically marked on that one. On this one, you have like a hole in the seat, and they have instructions in there that are like, take the harness and shove it down in the hole, and it's very specific and it has to go just this way. So like, it bothers me at this price point and that this seat is so nice that they wouldn't have a designated hiding spot for the 5-point harness that's called out. It is a designated spot, but it's more difficult to find. It's clearer on the Graco. So that's just like one of the differences. Now, Here's where it starts to get really different between the products. Britax would say, yep, that's our seat. That's the end of it. Once you're done with your 5-point harness, you do the booster seat. You tuck the harness in and you do your booster until the 63 inches and the 120 pounds. But it doesn't become a backless booster. That's where Graco has sort of stolen the hearts and minds of a lot of different Americans that are obsessed with their car seat doing 80,000 different things. So if you want your seat to also turn into a backless booster, your Graco seat will do that, and your Britax seat is not gonna do that. Now, personally, I don't know how I feel about a seat coming apart. I know it doesn't necessarily mean anything is bad or wrong with it, but I sort of feel like one shell with one piece all the way through might be my personal preference, but everybody's different about what their comfort level is. And I would need to undo the lower anchors here. Again, I ran into this with my other situation, but maybe I can do this briefly just to show. There we go. Can I get this one? Yes. That wasn't hard, I just didn't practice. This is the dry run. So there's the steel frame. You would also need to remove the splitter plate with the harness on the back in order to fully get it off, which you can do really quickly. If you are in a jam and you're trying to show consumers how to use stuff, you just do it real quick. No big deal. No reason to practice beforehand or anything. No. So now we can take the back fully off. It's away, it's stowed in a closet. And we would have the seat to be able to use. I think this backrest comes off completely. Yep. And then it just goes back there, and your buckle has a tuck-in spot on this. So now we're dealing with just a little butt-only booster. Now, keep in mind, buying this separately is probably about $35. I'm not even kidding. When you get to this level where they just need the butt-only booster, you can get them for so inexpensive. So I think it's a cool feature that it does it. My graver concern would be for like losing pieces and having people not put it together correctly at the end. So if you don't feel particularly mechanically inclined, you're probably better off just getting a Britax, because again, when you're ready for the butt booster, just the little lower body booster, you can buy that separately. And the other thing about high back boosters that people forget that's nice is that if your kid falls asleep, they have this piece supporting them and keeping their body upright. Whereas when you go to butt only, they're gonna be slumping a lot more. So that's not a dig on butt only boosters. It's just something to be aware of that's different between the styles. Okay, so which one would I buy? I'd probably buy the Britax. I like the material better. The other thing that I think is really critical to cover is that this seat has bike helmet foam all the way in the sides and all the way up through the head. The seat that I just took apart only has bike helmet foam, and it's the EPS, it's the white foam. This is EPP, and the Britax, that's a black foam. It just cracks less, which is nice, but yeah. You get more of that bike helmet foam and better breathability on the Britax. You can also pick fabrics that are flame retardant free. So I love all that. I would pay extra for the anti-rebound bar. And again, I would probably pay a little bit extra for a separate booster seat when I got there. But that Graco seat, the value for dollar, if you do not want to pay extra and you're happy just to have one thing and you feel confident that you're going to be able to do the stuff with it, I think is a really nice option for parents. So hopefully this video has been helpful. We covered a lot really, really rapidly. If you have questions or you have comments, please feel free to leave them below. We would love for you to hit like and subscribe. If you're not already a subscriber, we release videos ideally about once a week. And if this would make sense to share with somebody, please, by all means, share it. Knowledge is power, sharing is caring. Thank you so much for watching. We hope to see you in our next video. We appreciate every view and every viewer, and you have a good rest of the day. Thank you so much.